Imagine walking for days through rain-soaked jungle paths, carrying what little you own, seeking a place where the bombs aren't falling. You arrive to find tents in a field, thousands of others just like you, with no running water, no roof, no school for your children. This isn't a scene from the distant past. This is happening right now in the eastern provinces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Rich in gold, cobalt, and diamonds, yet its people live in fear and hunger. How did this happen? What drives this conflict that has displaced millions and shaken the very foundation of a nation? Over the next 10 minutes, we'll take you deep into the heart of the crisis, its roots, its players, and its human cost. Because to respond, we must first understand. The Democratic Republic of the Congo is vast, spanning about 2.3 million square kilometers, making it one of Africa's largest countries. Its eastern region, provinces like North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri, is a breathtaking landscape of mountains, rainforests, and rift lakes. This land is a treasure chest. The climate, terrain, and borders make it incredibly rich in minerals like cobalt, gold, tungsten, and coltan, a vital component for the electronic devices in our pockets. But despite this natural wealth, the DRC remains one of the poorest countries on the planet. Why? Decades of conflict, weak governance, corruption, and underdevelopment have left a deep scar. From rural villages to the outskirts of cities, families live with a daily, gnawing fear. The next raid, the next displacement, the next collapse of the world as they know it. To understand the present, we have to dig into the past. The roots of today's conflict run deep. Under colonial rule, first by King Leopold II of Belgium, and then by the Belgian state itself, the Congo was brutally exploited. Forced labor, unimaginable violence, and arbitrary borders that mashed diverse ethnic communities together without any regard for local dynamics set the stage for future turmoil. When independence finally came in 1960, the new nation was left with a fragile foundation, weak institutions, simmering regional rivalries, and persistent foreign interests. This instability erupted into the First Congo War from 1996 to 97, followed by the even more devastating Second Congo War from 1998 to 2003. Neighboring states, including Rwanda and Uganda, intervened. Multiple armed groups fought for control, and an estimated 5 to 6 million people died, many from preventable disease and hunger. All of this created a perfect storm of instability, shattered any trust in the government, and gave armed groups the space they needed to thrive. So, why the East? Why is this region the epicenter of the violence? It boils down to two things: geology and geography. As we mentioned, the eastern provinces are overflowing with valuable minerals, making them a hotspot for exploitation and fierce competition. At the same time, the terrain is remote, rugged, and difficult to access. This means the state's presence is weak, often non-existent. Armed groups and local militias operate with impunity in this power vacuum. As one observer put it, you have a state whose control ends at the provincial capital, and vast areas beyond where armed groups fill the vacuum. The result? Those precious resources become a prize to be fought over. And it's the civilians who suffer the consequences. The conflict is a tangled web with many different actors. You have the National Army, the FARDC, struggling to maintain control. Then there are numerous non-state armed groups, like the notorious March 23rd Movement, or M23, in the Kivus, and the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, in Ituri and beyond. Neighboring states play a role too. Rwanda, for instance, is repeatedly mentioned in relation to M23, citing its own security concerns, but also having resource interests in the region. And woven into this are local communities, where long-standing ethnic tensions between groups like the Hutu, Tutsi, Hema, and Lendu are layered on top of economic and political grievances. And finally, you have international institutions and humanitarian actors, desperately trying to help, but often blocked by insecurity and lack of access. Even when peace deals are signed, the conflict keeps re-emerging. It's a heartbreaking cycle. Weak governance is a core problem. The government simply doesn't have full control in many areas. Civil services are barely functional. Corruption is rampant, and many people have lost all faith in the justice system. The resources themselves are a powerful incentive. Armed groups fund their operations through mining, illegal trade of minerals, and extortion. For them, controlling territory means controlling revenue. External interference from neighboring countries, with their own security concerns and economic interests, constantly complicates the situation. Rwanda's historical concerns about Hutu militias, for example, were a major trigger for past interventions. And with every wave of violence, communities are shattered. Repeated displacement and trauma weaken the very fabric of society, making recovery harder each time. The remote geography makes it difficult to deliver aid or for the state to establish control, which armed groups exploit. And so, the conflict becomes cyclical, with each flare-up seeming worse than the last. This brings us to today. Recently, the violence has escalated sharply. In early 2025, the M23 made a major advance in North Kivu, pushing towards the city of Goma, capturing territory and causing mass displacement on a scale we haven't seen in years. As of April 2025, more than 7.3 million people are internally displaced within the DRC, a record high. Schools, health centers, and vital infrastructure have been damaged or forced to close. Humanitarian access is severely restricted, leaving millions without the aid they desperately need. This isn't just a localized skirmish. It's a crisis that threatens to reverse decades of fragile progress and plunge the region into an even deeper catastrophe. And this is where the humanitarian impact truly begins. While this video focuses on the causes, it's crucial to see how they lead directly to immense human suffering. When fighting erupts, thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, are forced to flee their homes. Farmers abandon their fields, markets shut down, and livelihoods are destroyed. Civilians are attacked. Women and girls face horrific risks. Children are recruited into armed groups. Essential services like healthcare and education simply break down. By understanding these root causes, the geology, the history, the actors, the weak governance, we can see exactly how they trigger the suffering that defines this crisis. What does life actually look like for those caught in the crossfire? We'll hear first-hand stories of displacement, we'll visit the overcrowded camps and host communities, and we'll examine the devastating food and health emergencies that are a direct result of the causes we've explored today. Let's move from the why of this crisis to the what. What does life look like for millions of people in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo right now? I want you to picture a family, a mother, her 2 children, and their grandparents. They live in a village in North Kivu that used to be peaceful, but now that peace is gone. At night, they hear gunfire. They see armed men moving through their community. The forest that once protected them now hides danger. So, they do what anyone would do. They pack what little they can carry and they run. After a long and terrifying journey, they arrive exhausted at a makeshift camp near a main road. They are hungry, they are scared, and they have no idea what comes next. This story, this family's story, isn't unique. It's the story of thousands upon thousands of families across eastern DRC. Humanitarian data tells us that over 7 million people are internally displaced across the country, most of them in the eastern provinces of North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. Some reports from August 2024 even put that number closer to 6.9 million, and it's been climbing ever since. For many, displacement isn't a one-time event. Imagine fleeing your home, finding a place to settle, and then having to run again when the fighting returns. This brutal cycle of multiple displacements deepens trauma and chips away at a person's ability to cope. It's a constant state of uncertainty and fear. When these families finally reach a displacement site or a camp, what do they find? They might get a tent or a basic shelter, but the conditions are often incredibly harsh. These spaces are overcrowded. There's not enough clean water or proper sanitation. Health services are weak, and there's very little protection from violence. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, reported that at the end of 2024, looting and restricted access severely disrupted humanitarian operations, leaving many people without even the most basic services. Then there are the host communities. These are the local villages and towns that take in displaced families. They are often struggling themselves, and now they have to share their limited resources, their food, their water, their land. This creates immense pressure. It leads to more people becoming vulnerable, more competition for jobs or aid, and sometimes, heartbreakingly, tension between the local community and the newcomers they are trying to help. Think about the children in this situation. Instead of going to school, they might be fetching water for the family, looking after their younger siblings, or trying to find some small way to help their parents earn a little money. This disruption to education is devastating. It's a loss that will affect an entire generation. Their health, their nutrition, their safety, it's all at risk. The conflict has also destroyed the backbone of life in the eastern provinces: agriculture and local markets. Fields that once grew food are now abandoned. Roads to markets are blocked. Trade has slowed to a crawl or stopped completely. Families have lost their way of earning a living. In North Kivu's Grand Nord region, an area known for its farming, production has been crippled by mass displacement and insecurity. The World Food Programme, or WFP, tells us that in the conflict-hit East, 1 in 3 people is now facing crisis-level hunger, or worse. That's over 10 million people. To be even more specific, about 2.3 million people in the region are in the emergency category of food insecurity. What does that mean in real life? It means families are skipping meals, they're eating less nutritious food, they're cutting down portion sizes, they're selling the last of their belongings, maybe a goat or some household items, just to buy a little food. It means a mother might give her children the last few bites of a meal while she goes to bed hungry. This isn't just a story about numbers. This is a story of profound human suffering. When you have widespread displacement and food insecurity combined with a weak health system, you get a perfect storm for a health crisis. Children under 5 are the most vulnerable. Malnutrition weakens their immune systems, making them susceptible to disease. The crowded camps and poor sanitation create the perfect environment for outbreaks to spread. In Ituri, South Kivu, and Tanganyika provinces, malnutrition is a grave concern. The EU's Humanitarian Overview estimates that over 4.45 million children under 5 are facing high levels of acute malnutrition between July 2024 and June 2025. Many displaced people are forced to live in an abandoned school, a church, or even out in the open. They face the constant risk of sexual and gender-based violence, and children are at risk of being recruited into armed groups. UNHCR has reported a sharp rise in civilian casualties and violations of international humanitarian law. There's an image that's hard to forget. A small child with wide eyes and tear streaks on a dusty face, just waiting for food. It's a vivid, heartbreaking, and very real picture of this crisis. For these children, displacement means losing more than just a home. It means losing their routine, their hope, and their education. Schools have been destroyed, or they've been turned into shelters or military bases. Teachers have fled. This interruption of school has long-term consequences. An entire generation could grow up without basic literacy or skills, trapping them in a cycle of poverty and vulnerability. This is the human cost of conflict that will echo Yingxiang Li for years to come. But behind the statistics, there are also heroes. The host families, the local communities who open their doors to those who have lost everything. Their generosity is incredible, but it comes at a huge cost. They share their food, their space, their water. The strain is immense. The social fabric of these communities is fraying under the pressure. One village elder told aid workers, "We had a little, but at least we had each other. Now everyone has lost something." Stories like this speak louder than any statistic. This crisis isn't just about the displaced. It's about entire communities, hosts and newcomers alike, trying to survive in a world turned upside down. Let's listen, just for a moment, to the voices of the people living this reality. Imagine a man named John from Masisi, North Kivu. He might say something like, "They came at night. We heard shouting, gunfire. My children cried. We fled into the forest and walked for 2 days. We arrived at the camp with no house, no bed, no proper food. I left my farm. I left my hope." Or a young mother, let's call her Marie, from South Kivu. "I used to go to the market to sell vegetables. Now, I walk 5 miles every day to get water for my children. We eat once a day instead of twice. I worry so much about their future." These are the voices of millions. So much of this crisis is visible. The tents, the camps, the long lines for aid. But there's an invisible crisis too. The psychological trauma, the toll on mental health, the lost dreams. A child who can't go to school, a teenager who can't imagine a future, a parent who feels helpless, unable to protect their child from hunger. It's important to remember that this region is incredibly rich in potential. It has vast mineral wealth, fertile land, and a vibrant culture. This contrast, the wealth and the war, the hope and the despair, is what makes the crisis in the DRC so heartbreaking and so urgent. You might be watching this from thousands of miles away, in New York, London, or Moscow, and wondering, why should I care? We should care because this crisis is a reflection of our shared humanity. When millions of people live without the basics, water, food, safety, education, it's a stain on our collective conscience. Also, in a very direct way, this story is connected to our own. Many of the minerals mined in eastern DRC, like cobalt and coltan, are used in the electronics we use every single day. So when their farms fail, when their children go hungry, when their communities collapse, the ripples of that suffering reach far beyond the borders of the DRC. Your awareness is the first step toward making a difference. In the eastern provinces of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a region marked by breathtaking landscapes, millions of people are caught in a cycle of conflict and displacement. As violence continues, humanitarian organizations and local authorities are on the ground, working tirelessly to provide a lifeline to those affected. In this video, we'll explore the massive humanitarian response, the immense challenges they face, and the opportunities that could bring lasting change to this troubled region. Let's start by understanding the scale of the crisis. We're talking about millions of people forced from their homes in provinces like North Kivu, South Kivu, and Ituri. These families face a daily struggle for survival, dealing with food shortages, a lack of clean water, and disrupted health and education services. It's a complex emergency, and the response needs to be just as multifaceted. A coalition of international and local organizations is at the heart of this effort. You have United Nations agencies like UNICEF, which are laser-focused on the well-being of children. They work to set up temporary schools, provide nutritional support, and ensure access to clean water and sanitation, giving children a semblance of normalcy and a chance at a future. Then there's the World Food Program, or WFP. Their mission is to fight hunger. In early 2025 alone, they delivered food and vital nutritional support to over 1 million people, paying special attention to pregnant women, new mothers, and young children who are most vulnerable to malnutrition. The Red Cross and Red Crescent societies are also indispensable. They operate mobile medical clinics, distribute essential supplies to displaced families, and manage the complex logistics of getting aid to where it's needed most. Working alongside them, you'll find European Union Humanitarian Aid Operations, or ECHO, which specializes in overcoming logistical hurdles, making sure that even the most remote communities, cut off by difficult terrain or security risks, are not forgotten. It's a coordinated effort, a web of support systems all trying to catch people who have lost everything. However, delivering aid in eastern DRC is incredibly difficult. One of the biggest obstacles is security and access. Active conflict and the presence of numerous armed groups often make it too dangerous for aid workers to reach communities in desperate need. Convoys can be attacked, and routes can be blocked, leaving entire populations isolated. Then there's the issue of funding. The scale of this crisis is enormous, and the resources required are just as vast. For 2025, the Humanitarian Response Plan for the DRC requested around $2.5 billion to help 11 million people. When this funding falls short, organizations are forced to make impossible decisions, cutting back on food rations, closing health clinics, or reducing the number of children they can get back into school. Every dollar short has a direct human cost. The physical environment itself presents another layer of challenges. We're talking about a region with dense forests, rugged mountains, and a road network that is often in poor condition or non-existent. During the rainy season, these dirt roads can turn into impassable rivers of mud, completely halting the movement of supplies. Imagine trying to transport tons of food or medical equipment under these conditions. On top of all this, the DRC is dealing with multiple crises at once. It's not just the conflict. The region frequently battles deadly disease outbreaks like cholera and measles, which spread rapidly in crowded displacement camps. There are also natural disasters, like floods or landslides, that can strike with little warning. This constant state of emergency stretches humanitarian resources to their absolute limit. And perhaps the most heartbreaking challenge is protecting the people themselves. Displaced populations, especially women and children, are incredibly vulnerable. They face the constant threat of violence, exploitation, and abuse. Children are at risk of being recruited into armed groups, and women and girls face a heightened danger of gender-based violence. Protection programs are a critical part of the response, but the risks remain tragically high. Despite these immense hurdles, the focus isn't just on immediate survival. Humanitarian organizations are also investing in programs that help people rebuild their lives and look toward the future. This is where the hope for long-term recovery lies. For example, livelihood support programs are helping families regain their independence. This could be through providing seeds and tools for small-scale farming, helping people access local markets to sell their goods, or creating cash-for-work programs where people are paid to help rebuild community infrastructure. These initiatives don't just provide an income, they restore a sense of purpose and dignity. Education is another top priority. When a crisis hits, children's schooling is often the first thing to go. To prevent a lost generation, organizations are setting up temporary learning spaces in camps and host communities. They run catch-up classes to help students who have fallen behind and provide school supplies so that every child has the chance to learn, dream, and prepare for a better future. Health programs are also crucial for recovery. Beyond treating injuries and immediate illnesses, they focus on preventative care. This includes large-scale vaccination campaigns to stop the spread of diseases like measles and polio. It also means providing nutritional support to prevent malnutrition and offering mental health and psychosocial services. The trauma of conflict and displacement leaves deep psychological scars, and helping people heal from this invisible pain is a vital part of the recovery process. These programs are about more than just surviving. They are about helping people and communities become whole again. So, what needs to happen for the situation in Eastern DRC to truly improve? There are several key areas that require sustained focus and commitment. First and foremost is conflict resolution. Without peace, the cycle of violence and displacement will continue. This requires a genuine political will to pursue peace agreements, disarm armed groups, and strengthen governance so that the state can protect its citizens and provide basic services. Lasting peace is the foundation upon which all other progress must be built. Next, community engagement is essential. The most effective solutions are those that are developed with, not for, the affected communities. When local people are involved in decision-making processes, aid becomes more effective, and communities become more resilient. Local leaders, women's groups, and youth representatives have invaluable knowledge of their own needs and context. Empowering them to lead their own recovery is not just respectful, it's smart. We also need to shift from short-term aid to long-term sustainable livelihoods. While emergency food aid is critical, it's not a permanent solution. The focus must be on helping people rebuild their local economies. This means supporting agriculture, reopening markets, promoting small businesses, and investing in vocational training. When people can earn a stable income and provide for their families, they become less dependent on external assistance and can start building a more secure future for themselves. Finally, none of this is possible without consistent global support. The world's attention can be fleeting, but the needs in the DRC are persistent. The crisis requires continuous funding from international donors to keep humanitarian operations running. It also needs sustained diplomatic pressure and media attention to keep the search for peace on the global agenda. We cannot afford to look away. The crisis in Eastern DRC is a stark reminder of how conflict, displacement, and poverty can create a devastating humanitarian emergency. Millions of lives have been upended, but amidst the chaos, there is a coordinated and determined effort to provide help and hope. International organizations, local authorities, and the communities themselves are working together every day to save lives and rebuild futures. Understanding these complex dynamics allows us to see the situation clearly, recognizing both the scale of the suffering and the importance of the ongoing support. Before we conclude, a quick disclaimer. This video has been created using publicly available information and data from reputable sources. All footage and images have been used with the utmost respect for the privacy and safety of the individuals shown. To protect their security, we have not shared any personal or identifying information. The situation in the DRC is complex, but awareness is the first step toward change. You can help by sharing this video or other credible sources to inform more people. If you are able to, consider supporting trusted humanitarian organizations that are working on the ground. Stay informed by following verified reports from reliable news outlets and aid agencies. And in the comments, feel free to discuss solutions and ways we can all contribute to helping these communities safely and respectfully. Thank you for watching and for taking the time to learn about this critical issue.